To India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 65. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today we are talking to Kyle. Kyle lives in the Seattle area and is an old friend of both Brian and I, and we're so excited to have you on.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome, Kyle.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. This is going to be way too much fun.
That would be correct, yeah. Oh, man. Although, I mean, I feel like we kind of grew up together at church and everything. I know so very little about your life as a traveler. So, did your family grow up traveling? Do you travel now? What's your deal?
Yeah, I think most of our traveling as a family was either some sales award that my dad won, and so we would go on a vacation together to, I think we went to Hawaii one time, and we went to Disney World another. These were like trips. And then, the other thing that we would travel to do is to go visit relatives in Eastern Washington over in Walla Walla. But, for the most part, family of four, our vacations were more ocean shores and, various camping spots as opposed to big travel destination kind of vacations. So, now I pretty much just kind of travel whenever I want to. It becomes a very spur of the moment thing. I'm not a huge planner.
Whoa.
And I'll just be like, hey, yeah, sure, Tyler, why don't I just come to Africa in 4 weeks? And then I just kind of go and do it.
He said that as if it's like hypothetical. That's actually, I just found out yesterday that is happening. He's going to go to Africa again.
Oh my goodness.
Surprise.
Because your brother
Now-
lives there.
Yes,
Which
to all
country?
of your listeners, my brother lives in Zambia.
Okay.
Lusaka, Zambia. So me popping off to Africa, I never anticipated that it would be a regular part of my life, but it has kind of become a regular part of my life. Like, it's
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting. Phrases you never
Yeah.
thought you'd say.
I know, right? Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it just, yeah, exactly.
So that kind of leads into, Kyle, there's 3 questions that
Yes.
we ask all of our guests. And the first question is, why do you travel?
Yeah, I would say generally because I want to see things or I want to see people. I would say those are kind of the 2 motivating things. I know a lot of people who love the travel experience, like hotels and airports and just like the experience
people
of it all.
like airports?
Well,
I like airports, Ryan.
Yeah, see, they're
Yeah.
everywhere. I know.
the worst.
I know.
Airports are the worst.
I know, I agree. But there are people who enjoy that, like the actual the mechanics of travel. I think, getting to the either to a place that I've always wanted to see or to a person. So these days,
Yeah.
most of my traveling is either because I want to go see something or because I want to go see a person.
Yeah.
That makes
And that
sense.
explains why, I haven't necessarily been to most of Asia, because they're just not, there aren't a lot of people there that I know that I want to see,
Yeah.
so.
So when you think about wanting to go see something, what are the types of attractions or things? What are these things that you want to go see? For Ryan, it's science.
Yeah. Right.
What is it for you?
Yeah, I think if it's something that has a personal significance, I love seeing created things. So large structures. I love going to cathedrals, just because the generational aspect of building, where it was your great grandfather started it and your son will finish it. That's always been just as someone who builds and as someone who's constantly taking on projects, it's such an interesting thing to stand somewhere where it's this bottom row of bricks was laid by one generation of the family and the ceiling was finished by another. And that's something that I just no matter how big the cathedral is, I always kind of marvel at that. And then, I mean, it's not just buildings, but like animals, right? Like I love animals. And so I have a brother there, but he's like kind of a stepping stone to all of the animals that I can see in Africa.
Cool.
So, yeah, I think, usually it's some sort of sentimental value, like I traveled literally all the way to Ireland to go see where they filmed Star Wars Episode 7. Not just for that. I wanted to see Ireland, but like, come on, like a little bit for
come
that.
on, Ryan.
Let's all be real.
Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah.
He
didn't get to go.
He didn't get to go on the island either.
Didn't get to go to
Skilling
Michael. Nope. Total fog. Total fog. Couldn't see 8 feet in front of you.
So what that means is Kyle and I are going to go back.
Okay, yeah. Did you have it
No.
booked?
I didn't have. Like I said, traveling, don't plan.
Okay.
I just do it.
Okay.
And so, even though we're not talking about the Ireland trip, basically we decided to go to Ireland, and it was like past their season. And so it was like a week and a half to 2 weeks after the end of when they do the trips out to Skellig Michael. So like one, it wasn't even an opportunity, an option. But then it was just like absolute fog. Like you walked over to the cliffs and like you just saw fog.
Just like nothing.
Yeah, no, it was just fog. It was just fog. It was pretty fog, but it really looks a lot like fog here. So
wait, it didn't look like Irish fog?
Yeah, Irish fog. This is a little known fact is Irish fog and American fog, they actually look really similar. Almost indistinguishable.
Wow.
Well, maybe if you were there longer, maybe you'd be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, it's clearly some sort of culturation problem that I have, definitely.
So, Kyle, have you ever been to Barcelona?
I've not.
See,
I imagine the fog looks similar.
No, I know where Cheryl's going with this.
Do you know of La Sagrada Familia?
Oh, the giant, the thing that like just got finished, right?
Oh,
it's not done.
Oh, okay.
So like,
it's almost done.
Okay, they say almost, and I think they've said almost for a while, but like there is currently construction happening on it, and it started like over 100 years ago, and so that's a cool cathedral because it's not done, and there's so many cathedrals that you're like happened way long ago, and it's really fun to see when you're like, and like the guy died, and then like his plans were destroyed, and now they're trying to figure it out. I mean, like there's a story there, and so it is a really interesting story
for those who are interested in it started on March 19th, 1882.
Yeah. That's 6 years before 100 years before I was born.
Yeah, and that was 100 years. I would have been
6 years.
I mean, I would have been negative, but yes. But I was born in 1982.
I was almost born. Yeah.
So the same year that I was born, but 100 years prior, and then 1 month after. So
that's crazy.
Just shy of.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just shy of 100
I'd recommend
years.
That's cool.
Yeah, if you like building projects like for that reason, like because that's a different reason than I think we've heard before. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I remember one of the things that I liked most about Florence was going to, I think it was called a Galileo Museum, but it was like
about that.
It was so cool because it was all these tools and like built things that they created to be able to take these measurements. And I'm not a museum guy. Like I'm just like, can we just burn this down? Like we could put like a Home Depot here, or like anything really. Anything here instead of this museum.
Home Depot in Florence.
I know. I'm telling you, they don't have good supplies. But like I was in that museum and I was fascinated. Like me and my brother, I think we were in there for 4 hours, just like because everything was this like custom designed, something to measure something, and that was really cool. So his like built things I think are really interesting to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Kyle,
yes,
what type of traveler are you?
What are the categories? I've heard that question before as I've listened to other it's an intentionally open-ended question.
Yes, it is.
But like what are the categories of types of travelers?
Well, if you were to make the categories,
what
categories would you want there to be?
I don't know. There's planners, there's not planners, there's stressful travelers, but I feel like you can be a non-planner and a non-stress traveler.
Oh, is this like a grid where you can be like different combinations?
There is a matrix. Yeah, I think so. What am I? I think I am a high energy spontaneous traveler.
Okay.
That's
and
what I would
where's your
say.
stress level?
Zero.
Okay.
And what about those around you? Does your spontaneity or high energy induce stress in those around you ever?
Well,
probably depends on who
I don't know.
Travel with.
Is probably the short answer.
Okay.
You have to travel with family. I love my family. That was not a dig at my family at all. But we all have very different travel styles. But I would say at this point, most of the buddies that I travel with, like, they're all kind of the same thing. So, like, for example, me and 2 friends from college and one of their wives went to Hawaii now 7 years ago. And it was like, there was no plan. It was just wake up and then do things. And every day we did something different. And every day, like, we didn't make any plans the night before. We just, like, got up and did it. But, like, we did something every day. Diving here, snorkeling there, driving around the island. We just did stuff. Drive through sugarcane fields and get everything really, really muddy and then get fined like $500. Like, I mean, sometimes you just do things because they sound fun and you don't think about, well, the top is still down on our convertible Jeep Cherokee. Or not Cherokee, but Wrangler. Anyways, irrelevant. So that's what I would say by high energy, like spontaneous. I like doing things. I'm not a big, like, sit around kind of guy. I can enjoy that, and I think when I travel in groups of people who like that, I can like that. But if it's up to me, I'm generally looking for something to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to rustle up some trouble.
That's funny. I was going to ask you if your lack of planning has ever come back to bite you in the butt. And then you talked about getting muddy and getting fined. So now I feel like I may not need to ask that question. But
yeah, but it was hilarious and it was so much fun. And mudding is way more fun when you're getting muddy. So you're muddy. So whatever, it's fine.
I do not agree with that statement.
Well,
maybe it's when you're getting muddy. Maybe it's more fun.
Ryan, would you like to watch Kyle get muddy and laugh at him?
I don't even know that I would like to see others get muddy.
Yeah,
No,
Ryan's a very clean person. So.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Well, I'm not as clean as I'd like to be, but okay. Last of our intro questions. What is your number one travel tip?
Oh, man. There were actually a lot of things I thought about when answering this question, but I think the number one thing I've landed on is everyone should always get data. Everyone always, no matter where you are.
Cell phone data?
Cell phone data.
Okay.
Get data. Because there's always, you think like, oh yeah, no, we'll get it and like one person will have it or like 2 people will have it. Just everyone get it at the beginning, get it at the airport. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's like, it's specifically set up to like facilitate that. That is one thing that I now live by is like, if I land in another country, pop the SIM out, get a different SIM, have data because it just... You're able to instantly communicate, like all the conveniences that make our lives so easy. Like all of a sudden they go away if you can't text one another. Like, I mean, it's beyond me. I've slowly won most of my family over to that. The first trip we took as a family, I was like, everyone should get data. And like my dad and I got it. And then it just went. It was, we got disconnected, lost. I was on a motorcycle. We were driving in Italy. And it was like, how are we even going to get a hold of each other? So everyone, just buy cellular data. It just goes better.
Do you normally travel with more than one other person? Is it usually a group situation? Because I'm trying to think like, okay, if my husband and I went somewhere and we wanted to get data, I can't think of a reason that we would both do it. Because when we travel together, like, we just kind of do things together, you know?
Yeah, but like, what if one of you is taken and they're the person who has the data? Like, now you're done. Like, you can't,
What's your response to that, Cheryl?
Yeah, Cheryl, how do you respond to that really normal and completely plausible scenario? Touche!
You twisted my words, Kyle.
I don't know. I might just roll over and give up if one of us is taken.
I think there's a fair point that if you're just traveling with 2 people and you're never gonna get separated, or you're never not get separated, like you're taken, though. I mean, I think that's on the table. But like, I want to stay longer in this museum. Okay, fine. Like, I'm gonna go walk through shops. Like, it just creates like freedom for even if you're gonna like go separate ways for like an hour, it makes versus the like 1990, hey, like you need to be home by 3:30 or you're
dead, I guess.
It's easier. Right. It's just easier, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But to answer your question, I think I mostly travel in groups.
Okay.
I mostly travel in groups. I'm not a solitary
with
traveler.
groups and with like single people, or you know what I mean, where it's not just like I'm with my spouse and that's it. I think that does make sense, because if the whole group doesn't have it, then I could see that being like, well, I guess this person is just out of the loop or whatever. Yeah. Can you walk me through getting data at an airport? Whenever I've gone abroad, I've never gotten data. And I don't think I've ever regretted it either. Although I wouldn't say like for the rest of my life I won't or anything.
Yeah.
But so I've never gotten data at the airport. So can you just like give me a tutorial on this?
I mean, whether you get data at the airport or whatever.
But I think what you're describing is getting a SIM card in the country.
Correct.
As opposed to paying for international data through your own service, right?
I just didn't know it was an option at the airport. Like I've never seen it. So I'm curious.
And to be fair, sometimes it's not an option at the airport. Okay. When I land in Zambia, like there's no guy like selling me like SIM card. Well, maybe there is, but I'm sure you don't want to buy those SIM cards.
Well, and I would argue that if you're going to get a SIM card, generally the airport's not the best place to get it.
Financially speaking, probably not. It's maybe like, especially in Europe, maybe it's like 10 euros higher. But like the nice thing is that generally speaking, so you just kind of are walking through the airport and there will be like just like when you're going through SeaTac, like there's, Hudson News or whatever that is, they'll just have kiosks. And the nice thing is that the people there generally always speak English.
Okay.
And, if you're waiting till you get up to, Normandy, France, there may not be somebody in the town who speaks English. Yeah. And that's not a huge problem if you have Google Translate, but you need data for that. See how I brought it around? See,
I brought. Yep.
So if you go up to people in airports, usually they have plans, and what they do is it's just like getting a cell phone here. They just need an ID, so you just give them your passport number. It's usually for a set amount of time. Like a 1 month plan or a 2 week plan, and they have a lot of like traveler plans, and it's usually like unlimited 4G data or something like that, and a certain number of texts and calls, and once you're set, and then you just have a number.
The thing that so there's a couple of things to keep in mind. One is you have to make sure that your phone has been unlocked by your home carrier
that is
before you leave. And so
so that's only an issue with if you're on T-Mobile, AT&T, or any other GSM carrier. CDMA, Verizon, and Sprint, their phones are always unlocked.
I thought they were switching from CDMA.
Well, maybe. But Verizon phones are always unlocked.
Okay.
From what I know. Yeah. Don't take my word for it. I don't want emails. Yeah. But you do want to make sure that is a totally good point.
It's unlocked. And then Kyle also referenced once you get a new SIM card, you actually have a new phone number.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's a local number, right?
That makes sense.
So you can't use the same number. I've done it when I was in Slovenia for an extended period of time. I got a local one, and their rates are so much cheaper.
Oh yeah,
than ours are
way
here.
Cheaper.
So it's not super expensive.
No.
So if you are going to look at getting it, you can potentially, by getting an international SIM card, it might be cheaper than whatever international charge you would pay to your own company. Now,
fractions.
Really?
Well,
okay.
It depends, because like T-Mobile, it's already included. I don't pay anything. I pay $0 for like something like 200 different countries where I can have service. Yeah. Like I don't get calls as a part of that, but texts and data I do. And really, I'm not making phone calls.
Yeah,
it's an emergency
T-Mobile is
calls. Yeah, that's fine.
T-Mobile's the best.
So for that, it's cheaper for me to get that service. But for any other one, they usually have some sort of plan, and so you just have to kind of compare and comparison shop, and it's very often cheaper to just do the SIM card.
Yeah,
Nice.
Usually.
Love it.
So yeah.
Okay, next trip, Cheryl. Next international trip.
Well, Daryl has T-Mobile, and I don't. And so I'm already thinking, like, although even the last trip we took, I just, like, sometimes gave him my ID to hold in his wallet so I didn't have to bring a purse. So, like, I just wasn't carrying stuff on me. So I feel like between the two of us, one of us having data, we would be fine. Although apparently if I get taken, it's going to be a problem. So.
It's just a huge problem if you get taken.
Yep. So
Qui-Gon's not there.
Cheryl,
problematic.
Don't get taken.
Yeah, that's really the
I know. I
lesson
feel like
here,
that's
people.
a pretty good solution to that problem.
So Kyle, what trip are you going to be telling us about today?
Oh man, I'm talking about my trip to France last year.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is not your standard trip to France, was it, Kyle?
When you say standard trip to France, I think what you're alluding to is that it wasn't really on my dime. I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Not only was it not on your dime, but it was like super nice, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was a sweet trip.
Who's on time? Who's giving out dimes for trips, and how do I sign up for this?
Yeah, no, it's not really. It's a very exclusive program, really open to me, and that's it.
Yeah,
but
it's true.
So yeah, about maybe like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago at this point, a buddy of mine, TJ, who you know, Cheryl.
Oh yeah.
TJ Martinell. Oh yeah. So TJ and I have started traveling together, and we had gone to 3 or 4 years ago, I think, was when we went to the British Isles. So we went and did the UK, and then we did Scotland, or England, then we did Scotland, and we did Ireland, and that was a blast. And he was talking with his aunt and uncle, and his aunt and uncle were like, well, we're planning a trip to France. And he was like, oh man, you got to go here, you got to go here. And he just started like listing off all these places. And they were like, well, why don't you just come with us? And he was like, okay. And they were like, actually, why don't you bring a friend too? So I was that friend that got brought along.
Dude.
Yeah. And I remember when he told me, he was like, hey, you want to go to France? And I was like, why don't we go to like Germany or like, Switzerland or somewhere else? Like, I don't know that I really want to go to France. And he was like, no. My aunt, like, I was like, if we're going to pay to go somewhere, like, let's go somewhere that I, really know that I want to go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he was like, no, my aunt and uncle are paying for it. I was like, so yeah, let's go to France. I'm in. When are we going? How, so yeah, I mean, it was a huge blessing. Like, they're just incredibly generous people.
Wow.
And, so yeah, we went to France, and mainly we were in 3 areas, which was really fun. We went up to the Normandy region, the American quarter, all along the beaches. And then we went to a little winemaking town called Beaune. And then we were in Paris for about 5 days. So didn't make it down to like, the south of France, but, a pretty good tour of, 3 very different places, let's say that.
Okay.
Which was a total blast. And we went there for 2 weeks and landed in Paris, took a train up to Beaune, which is where we were staying in Normandy. So we were there, we were in Beaune for about 4.5 days. And then we took a train and a taxi and down to Beaune, which is just about 20 minutes away from Dijon. So there were a lot of mustard jokes that were made.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then
I thought you were going to say mustard fields, and I like that you said mustard jokes.
No, mustard jokes. No, yeah. And then we were in Bonn for maybe 3 days, and then we went to Paris for about 5. So it was a blast of a trip. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great. It was 2 weeks, and what was interesting about this vacation, obviously, I had zero hand in planning it.
Which seems like the ideal trip for you.
It was
as
phenomenal,
a non-planner.
actually, yeah. I just kind of looked at the itinerary, and I was like, wow, all right, let's do it. Like, I don't know what a lot of this is, but I'm in. And so his aunt and uncle, they use a travel agent. Okay. And so every day was accounted for, was planned. And they had built-in free time where you could unstructured, like, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
There were probably, like, 3 days. There was 1 day in each location, and then 2 days in Paris that were just, like, free explore days. But other than that, like, usually we had one scheduled activity each day. And then the other thing that was amazing is we had, like, private, like, chauffeur from, like, place to place. Yeah, so, like, the sign... it was like that was us. We were one of the people with the sign. And I was like, man, this is just like a great way to go.
I'm surprised that wasn't your travel tip.
Yeah.
Like I'm a driver.
Yeah.
Well, I did think about it. I actually thought that was a travel tip that I considered. But I think cellular, everyone should get data. But
so that's interesting that you are the type of spontaneous traveler where if someone else plans it for you, you're cool with it, because I know other spontaneous travelers or non-planners, I should say, who they're like, I don't want it planned because I don't know how I'm going to feel and what I'm going to want to do that day. So did it make a difference because someone else was paying for it? Or if, like, let's say you and Ryan go on a trip and Ryan's like, I just chose everything we're doing. Would you be chill about it? Or would you be like, I don't know how I'm going to feel?
I mean, maybe like after the 5th museum, I might be like, hey, I'm maybe just going to ditch
Ryan
this.
doesn't like museums either. It's fine.
Well, okay.
No, what I mean by museum is like some sort of like, geology or like, it's like, I mean, I love it and it's all interesting. But like
when he makes you take notes on his lecture about the rocks or something.
I would just say I'm geeking out. I'm geeking out about 30 to 60% as much as he is in that moment. And I also don't know very much, like the same way that he does. So he will read a plaque and be like, that's so interesting. And I will read it and go, I have no idea what that means.
You're like, is this English? I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's not an English rhyme. I don't understand what. So I don't know. I mean, obviously someone else was paying for it. So I had zero, whatever. But I would say I'm a pretty low key traveler. Like,
okay.
I'm a pretty low-key individual. If someone else is like, hey, I created this great plan, I'll be like, sweet. And if there's a time where I'm like, yeah, I just don't want to do that, like, I just won't do it, and I'll just do my own thing, because we'll have data to be able to talk to one another. So, like, it's just super easy to just break free from that. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm not averse to structure. I just don't naturally tend towards it.
Interesting. Okay. That's cool.
And I also think that traveling in a group, having like a core itinerary that's like every minute is allocated or is allotted for, but there's built-in flexibility, I actually think that's a great way to travel in groups because the expectations are clear, like it's all there.
Yeah.
And you know when there's free days and you know when there's an activity and when it starts. So
the bigger the group of people, the more inefficient it becomes to try
to
and
crowdsource and plan.
Oh, what does everybody want to do? Oh, I don't know. Like when Tori was
starts
on,
being nice, and you're like, just say what you want. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I would agree with that. Okay, so 3 main places that you were. So I have been to one of those places.
Paris. Yeah.
So
same with me.
Why don't you start with? You said
not
Bayeux?
Yeah, Bayeux.
So Bayeux, it looks like it's just south of the actual beaches.
The beaches, yeah.
So what all did you do and what was it like?
Yeah, so, I mean, you're in Normandy. So the entire time you're there is shaped by, like, the actual Normandy campaign.
Sure. Now, Normandy...
is the region.
But how much of that region? There's a whole lot of coastline.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Normandy beaches are this run right here.
Okay, so...
and then the region
kind of
is like
a giant bay.
Yeah.
The whole area around the northern end is all considered Normandy.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like, the roots of Normandy are like the Normans. It was a people group, and, those things. I'm not the history guy. TJ could give you the entire history, but... Yeah, so Bayeux, it was an incredible town. It was a town that was largely untouched by the occupation and by like the invasion, and so like there's a lot of older buildings there that necessarily like not everywhere in the region has those like older buildings. Yeah. Like for example, they have a couple churches that served as like triage centers and like hospitals, and those were like never hit. And so, I mean,
that's great.
It's like, it's a little different than, Carentan or Caen, which were just like epicenters of conflict. And so they've been rebuilt, but they were very, very destroyed during the war. So it's a very, very cool little town. It's a totally walkable town. Like most towns in Europe, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Anything built before a car is way more walkable.
Right,
so.
Exactly. They have this huge, beautiful cathedral in the middle of the town, and just like hotels and window shops and all this stuff. It's about 20 minutes from the beaches. So while we were there, I mean, a lot of it was World War II stuff. So we, like, the first morning we were there, we did a tour of Omaha Beach. And then we did a tour of Sword Beach, which was the British beach. We went to Pointe du Hoc and just kind of walked around, learned about it in history class, but like listened to kind of like, here's where they climbed up, and here's where they were supposed to be at this time, and here's where they actually found the guns and that kind of a thing, which was just really like amazing to hear about. So we did that, Omaha, Sword, and then the next day was a free day. And so TJ and I rented a car, and we drove out to a place called Mont Saint Michele, which is known as the floating city.
Yep, that's on my list.
It is.
It's
totally
amazing.
cool. It's totally unreal. If you're gonna go, make sure you go for low and high tide.
Yeah,
we were only there for low tide. But I mean, it's just so striking. Like, for those of you who are listening and have no idea what that is and don't have access to Google, think of it as like a city that is built on this like hill outcropping that's completely surrounded by water when the tide is in. And so like, it was one of the fortresses during the 100-Year War. There's a bridge out to it now that, you can obviously walk out on. But I mean, it's cool, and it's just sheer. Like, it just goes, like, the sides just go straight up, and then there's an abbey on top of it, and it was really cool.
It just looks very fake. Like, if I saw it in a movie, I'd be like, oh, they like CG.
Magic
city.
made that.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, yep.
And no, I mean, it's there, and the French made it, and good on them for making it. I mean, totally epic. Well done.
Yeah.
But,
Wow.
they have hotel rooms you can stay in, and like, obviously wake up and be on the island and have it be completely surrounded by water. So it is very, very cool. So we did that. And then they have a really, really cool Operation Overlord, which is what was the code name for the Normandy invasions. They have a really, really cool, museum there that walks you through kind of like the 6 months leading up to Normandy, and like the decisions that were made and how they made the decisions. And then it has a bunch of, tanks and motorcycles and awesome war things. But
Awesome war
yeah.
things.
Yeah. So yeah,
Are you into history? Like, is that normally interesting to you, or was it like so interesting that anybody would be into it?
No, I mean, well, I wouldn't say I'm into history. In the, like, I learn and consume about it on my own when I'm not at some sort of historical site. But like, when you're there, it's, I would say, there's really well done museums and there's really poorly done museums.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I would say that like the Overlord Museum is done really, really well because it walks you through the history behind it, as opposed to just talking of details about, X or Y. So
Cool.
Yeah, I think
That makes a big difference.
it does make a huge
It
difference.
does.
Yeah,
I think
it really
I've said
does.
on this podcast before, I think the challenge of a museum and what distinguishes just a standard museum from a really good museum is museums are almost always about a niche thing, whether it's art or it's history or it's science or whatever. They're about a really specific thing that not everybody knows.
Yeah.
But so often they just present it and assume that you have the background knowledge or can fill in those details on your own. And a really good museum will guide you through and make those connections for you if you don't have those pieces. And it sounds like that's what that museum did.
This whole speech was running through my mind as I was walking through the Overlord, because we've had this discussion before, and I was like, Ryan, I literally remember thinking Ryan would enjoy this museum because it didn't just like explain the context. Like, one of the most interesting things I found out was that, the channel is actually like dominated by storms, and it's really, really bad waters and everything like that. And leading up to the invasion, and it was actually called off a few different times, but leading up to the invasion, they had really, really bad weather. And they basically, there was a weather, report that was like, it might clear up for like this 2-day window. And basically they were like, okay, we're going to do it right now. And so they went and they did the invasion, and then these massive storms, these early summer storms came in, and if they hadn't crossed during that like small window, that it would have delayed the entire invasion by like months.
Oh wow.
And I didn't know that. And so just like again, it's like it's the choosing to go that was just really interesting. And they told you that. Like I didn't have to know that. As a military war historian, like I don't have to have that context. They taught you that context. So I thought it was a really, really well done museum.
Yeah.
That's awesome. If you are ever in New York, the 9/11 Museum does that, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that museum.
Yeah, because it walks you through the story in a similar way where I think I'm the same as you, where like I'm not seeking out history in my everyday life, but when I'm somewhere and I learn about it, I think it's fascinating. And so, but if it's a story that's told well, because it's like how history classes did not interest me, but when you actually hear a story told well, you're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Yeah.
Well, and like while you're there too, like that's the big thing is
it's a huge difference.
I'm just like reading about people who are dead in a book, and I'm 16 and I'm bored out of my mind. Like,
and they're like, "No, what year did this happen?" And you're like, "I don't care."
Great, so, and then you go to like the GPO where the Irish rebellions took place, and like you're like sitting there in the where they were, and all of a sudden history comes alive.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Yeah. So that was Beaune. One of the coolest things, or Bayeux, excuse me, that was Bayeux. One of the coolest things that's still there is they turned one of the beaches, Aeromarche, I think is what it is in French. It's a bay, and they literally built like a wave break using these massive concrete like pylons that they brought across the channel so that you could like land resources. You can see them floating out here still. Those are them.
We're on Google Maps,
Sorry,
by the way. Looking at like these two.
Yeah. So they literally had this giant wall that they created so that they could have a port. And I think it was the Brits who did it, and we basically just like shuttled people on boats. And they actually built like a port, and the port was actually destroyed by the storms that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But at that point, they had gotten enough people on land that they had like control of the beaches and everything. But like these giant cement tank are still out there like floating in the bay, and they're just like, yeah, no, we're just gonna leave them there. So like just kind of seeing that, and again like the sheer scale of it all and the planning that went into that and the thinking, that was really, really cool.
Yeah. So if you go to Google Maps and you go to the satellite view, it looks like it's just if you find Normandy Beach, or what you called
Aeromarche is the French name for that portion of Normandy Beach, because Normandy Beach is like that huge long coastline.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, like almost directly, I guess, north of it, and there's these little things. There's a couple of ships that were just in the water, I'm guessing, unless those were leftovers too.
No, those are them.
Oh, those are them too.
Those are them. They're these giant concrete things.
Okay.
And they're just
these
there.
ones up here though too.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So and some a little bit farther away as well. Oh yeah, I can see those are the same.
Yep.
Just waves breaking across.
So they just made this giant port.
Wow, that's cool.
And I like literally didn't know that, because again, it wasn't the American tactic, and so you don't really hear too much about it.
Sure.
But like, they built it, and it was pretty epic to see that. So,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, the whole Normandy region was amazing. I'd go back in an instant. Everyone there like just super loves Americans. And
oh really? Still?
Oh yeah, I mean, we were there a month before the 75th anniversary, so the town's gonna be like decorated and stuff.
Sure.
But I mean, no, they just love Americans in that whole area.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's this pub that's right across from Pegasus Sword Beach, and the Brits landed, and they had to or it was Pegasus Bridge, not Sword Beach, but one of the first objectives that we had to take in the invasion was this bridge to allow forces to move basically across it, and they knew that if they didn't take it quickly, the Germans would destroy it, and that would cause huge problems.
Sure.
So they actually have the Brits like landed these 3 gliders in like half of a football field. It was unbelievable how they were able to do it. And they sprinted across the bridge and they liberated this one little inn, and it's like the first part of France that was liberated from the occupation. That family still owns that inn.
Oh, wow.
And they invite back. Well, now most of the guys who actually liberated it have passed away.
Yeah.
But they have a standing invite to their families to send representatives of their family to come and celebrate the liberation of their inn and the start of the liberation of France every year.
Oh, wow.
And they do it every year.
That's really
so
cool.
I mean, like it's
a big deal.
it's a big deal for them up there.
That's really cool.
So it was kind of fun being there, and everyone wanted to talk about the war and the history behind it, and yeah, it was cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then
you went south?
Then we went south. Then we went to Beaune, Beaune. It's a ridiculous spelling. Which is, where's Paris?
Paris is over here.
It's like right down here. So it's like southeast. Right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like on the other side.
It's pretty far removed.
you
It's
did
closer
like
to Switzerland.
It's pretty close to Switzerland on the east.
Triangle, kind of, between the different places. Well,
No, it was more like a almost straight
line.
line.
Almost
like
a
a
line.
bent
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. A really straight line, and then you sneezed and just kind of took a little bit of left turn.
Well, I mean, I guess you could say triangle.
Yeah.
That's just a very, oblique?
I don't know.
Yeah, oblique.
School was a long
It's
time
not
ago.
acute. It's the opposite of acute.
Which I think is obtuse. That's it. Yeah, not oblique.
Nice.
That's
not
different.
confident,
Sorry.
but apparently I know the answer.
Yeah.
So we went to
Obtuse triangle,
Beaune, which was very different than Bayeux. It was a very different climate. It was really dry, which is obviously why it is like a prime region for wine. And so we were there for 3 days, and it was just like a little town that like still had some of its like medieval wall around it.
Oh, that's cool.
And like you could walk on it, and I mean, at this point, like apartments would be built up against it. You know, it wasn't like, oh, there's a wall, but it still was cool. And you know, again, cathedral in the middle of it, kind of thing. And we did a bunch of tours of like vineyards, and just learned about French wine and drank French wine and drank French wine and drank French wine, and we learned about French wine, the things that we'd forgotten because we drank that much wine. So I mean, it was a blast. It was really fun. TJ's aunt and uncle they live in Napa, and so they kind of have.
Okay, so they are appreciators.
Yeah, exactly. They have a very high affinity for wine, and you know, it was fun doing all that stuff. I learned a ton.
Yeah.
Is that why it was chosen then to
The
go
region,
to that region?
yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool little town, you know, if you're in France and you just want like a you know, kind of an off the beaten path place to go, like it's pretty easy to get there, and it's like really, you know, it's removed. Like, you know, most people speak some English, but not a lot. I mean, like it feels like you're in France, right? I mean, it feels like you're in a different country. So that was a really fun place, but that was like the most low key part of the whole trip, because it was just like sitting in a car, listening to our like tour guide tell us about winemaking, and then we'd get out and go and taste the wine, and then we would go to another, and it was fun.
So your driver was also your tour guide?
Yeah. He was like the driver in the town. And he was he makes wine.
So you were like the visitors then?
I mean there were other guys in the town, but like he was like, I recently started doing this like 3 years ago to help improve my English.
Oh, interesting.
Nice.
And I mean, he was great. He was super knowledgeable. Like, you know, he born and raised there. His family's been there for like 500 years. You know, they've owned these like vineyards for forever.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, it was cool. And you know, you get to these little towns, and it's like a little town. It's not like, you know, Redmond or like, you know, it's like this little, like you could throw a rock from one side of it to the other, and
little town.
so yeah,
quiet
it was
village.
Cool. Little town, quiet village. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Every day like the one before.
I think what I appreciate about areas like that is when you get far enough away from tourism that no one's trying to sell you a selfie stick. I think that's when I feel like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, there's not like a tourist industry here where I feel like I no longer get to appreciate the things that are here because there's so much tourism here. So
or just a
that's
place
cool.
that feels distinctly unlike where you came from. Like one of the things TJ and I were joking about in Dublin is like we're walking around. We just left, St. Patrick's Cathedral.
Yeah.
We're walking around and it's like, and there's a CVS, and you're just like, what? Get that out of here.
Yeah.
It's just like you're just like, am I in like California? Like what's going on? And so my favorite, what I loved about Beaune was it just. And Bayeux, they felt so distinctly French, like they were unlike what I was used to. I did not see really the same signs that I would see back home, and that's quickly become my like, am I enjoying a trip? That's kind of my measure is like how much of it I don't recognize. Because if I recognize a lot of it, it's like, well, it feels like home.
Yeah, you could do that here.
Right? Yeah. So
that was one thing that surprised me in Venice was to see all of these like chain clothing stores. Or,
sure.
I had no idea there was any store that was going to be originally from the States in Venice, and then that was a piece of knowledge I didn't have until I was there, and I was like, what why is there, and I can't even think of an example of what ones were there, but like all these designers and stuff that I recognize, and I was like, oh, okay. All right, Venice. Like,
No,
I don't know.
just curious how many of those designers were actually Italian, but we just happen to have them in the U.S.
I'm not sure. I just Googled list of stores in Venice because now I'm trying to find out.
I mean, let's be
what
real.
the
There's
names
probably
of
a
them
Claire's
are. Like,
there where people are getting their ears pierced, and it's just like, get out. Like, why is this a thing?
Although I would get my ears pierced in Venice, that'd be a story. Like,
Sure.
oh man, that's awesome though. That's very cool.
Yeah. So it was. I mean, it was
Nice.
fun. Like, we just kind of walked around and had dinner, and TJ and I rented bikes at one point because I couldn't talk him into renting scooters, which was only a concession because I wanted him to rent motorcycles. So we went all the way down to bikes, which was fun. I mean, we still had a blast like riding around, but it just felt so different, and just quiet. So
That's cool.
yeah, that was cool.
Did you get there by train, or how did you get there?
So-
You were saying it's easy to get there.
Train from we had a train from Bayeux to Paris, and then we changed trains in Paris and took another one out to Dijon, and then the driver who was our tour guide picked us up there. So,
Okay. Very cool.
yeah. Oh, I have to tell you guys this though, because you'll both appreciate this.
Okay.
So we're like standing in Dijon. We're standing at the station, like looking for our like sign.
Yeah.
Which most of them had said like Fitzgerald, which was the person who planned it.
Sure.
And I saw someone walk past me with a sign that said Kyle Evans.
What?
And I was like, well, first of all, that's hilarious. And then I was like,
That's
well,
so
wait a
funny.
second. My name is Kyle Evan. And there's like a high chance that like they just printed the wrong name on the sign. And so I like walked up to him and I was like, hey, like, are you picking up like a group of 4 to go to? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that's us. But it was just funny because I saw,
gosh.
I only noticed the sign because it was Kyle's name. Obviously,
Yeah.
Kyle Evans' name.
Yeah.
And it's so close to my
Yeah.
name. And I was like, that was the only way I made that connection, that I think
Oh
that guy
my
might be
gosh.
looking for us.
That's so funny.
So, yeah, that was just.
And that is how your movie started, where you ended up like either being suspected for like a big robbery,
Yep.
or
Right.
like
Yep.
That's exactly
I'm trying to think
right.
of how like this becomes a heist film of some
Yep,
sort.
definitely
or, like,
does. Yep. And in case,
Yeah.
just in case any of our listeners don't know who Kyle Evans is, he was on our Christmas minisode talking
Yes.
because he lives in the Czech Republic.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah,
He's good people.
So he is that, and
And
actually,
he sent us a little voice message.
He did.
of explaining a weird Christmas tradition in his country.
yeah, and so I've got
awesome.
a goal of getting out to visit.
Oh, nice.
To visit them soon.
Nice.
Well, soon. Hopefully, I would like to go out
Before
and visit
they
them
move
and
away.
check. Well, I just got the email this week. They originally moved to Slovenia and then they moved to Czech Republic, but 5 years this week.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
been out of the United States, so which is crazy. Exciting for them, but crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So, Paris.
Yeah, so we went to Paris.
Was it your first time there?
It was my first time there.
Okay. And what'd you think?
You know, it wasn't my favorite place in the world.
Okay.
See, I think Kyle's in a similar boat to me when it comes to Paris.
Okay.
I've made the joke. It's not a joke actually, but I pass it off as a joke. Where I said I will go back to Paris again under threat of divorce. That is pretty much like that's the line that I would have to.
I would also watch that movie, so
I just, like it was good. It was good to be there. Like obviously it's a famous place. There's like the big courtyard where they killed people during the French Revolution. You've got the Arc de Triomphe. You've got, it is a pretty city. You got the Eiffel Tower. And after like 2 or 3 days, I was like, what if we took a train back to Normandy? Like, I don't know. It's pretty. You walk around. The architecture's amazing. I don't know. It wasn't
You're kind of whatever about it.
It just wasn't my place, And I kind of knew that. Like, I knew going into the trip that, it necessarily wasn't. But, like, it was cool to be there. Like we went to a bunch of museums and saw the water lilies, and like that was fun. And we were there. The huge disappointment of the trip was that we went a month after Notre Dame caught on fire, which was like the thing that I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Like that was like that's the thing to go see. And so, literally a month before we landed in France is when it caught on fire. And so we were there when now the street that's in front of it you can go on that street now. But when we were there, like that was still closed off. Yeah. And so you couldn't get very close to it at all. I mean, you could get close to it, but not enough to see any like real detail or enjoy like the beauty of the front of it And so, that was just like, bummer.
That's disappointing. Yeah.
So in a way, I've experienced a more unique Notre Dame experience than a lot of people.
Sure.
But
that's true.
But that was one of the big disappointments, and that was something that I wanted to see that I didn't get to. So
we had a guest on who went on her honeymoon in April, and Paris was their final spot. And the first location they were in, Notre Dame was on fire while they were there. Well, Beth.
Beth.
Now she's
Okay,
yeah. So she was already on her trip and on her way to Paris, and then it was on fire. And so that was pretty crazy too, because it was like immediately after, and it was, I think you're right. You have a more unique experience that you can say you were there immediately after like this thing that caught the world's attention happened.
Right.
So,
And you're walking past and you see all these shops that are like just on the other side of the river from it and everything, where I mean those people just been like, what's going on? Like, I mean, that would have been so insane to like have, own that shop, worked in that shop your entire life. And then, you always just have Notre Dame there and it's beautiful and it's glorious. And then, one day it's on fire. Just like, wow, that's crazy.
Intense.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So you said you would only go there under threat of divorce.
Yes. Now it's on record.
Yeah. Would you go there on someone else's dime again?
I mean, do people pass up free things, free trips? I don't think
people do, but not generally.
I think if it was just to Paris, honestly, I may not. Like I might say, I appreciate it, but I don't know. I just it's just not my city.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so then if someone is going to Paris, what would you recommend? Like, what are the things that you were like, this is worth seeing in this city that I could kind of pass up otherwise?
Yeah, they have a building. First of all, just go. Don't like restaurants. You can go to restaurants if you want, but really all you need to do is find a bakery and get bread and then get cheese, and that's all you have to do. It's the cheapest place you could possibly eat. Like, and it's amazing. Like, it's just amazing. Like the baguettes are just. You're just like, wow, I'm just going to eat these forever.
Good everywhere, yeah.
Right. So that easy. There's a banking building. It's one of the tallest buildings, or it is the tallest building in Paris, that has a roof observatory.
Oh, and we've heard about this.
Have you now? And you can buy...
Apparently it's very ugly.
Go ahead.
Apparently it's very ugly. But it's a good view.
Yeah, it's not pretty, the building itself. No. But the top is really, really pretty. It's a great view of like the whole city. And you can buy a, they call it like a twice up pass or something like that.
Oh,
so you can do it during the day and then you can do it at night.
Oh.
But the tip is you have 24 hours to use it. So you have to be careful when you buy it, because if you buy it at like 9 a.m., like you got to go up that night. So anyways, we bought it to go up at night, and then we went up during the day a different time. But
Nice.
just watch the fine print. That's all I'm saying. But it was cool because like we went up, and they do like the light show on the Eiffel Tower at like 10 o'clock or whatever. So we timed our visit to see that, and to kind of see like Paris go to sleep and wake up, city of lights and all. And that was really pretty. I mean, it really was. Just to kind of see it wake up and to see all the lights turn on, and like it was really pretty. We stayed up there for probably like an hour and a half.
And is it?
Nice.
It's like a restaurant, so you sit down and you.
No, it's open air. It's just they just got big
observation
nets that stop people from jumping off.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's like a cafe up there. You can buy like whatever. There is like a gift shop that you can go down to, like classic tall building style. But yeah, it's just like an open air thing. We just like hung up there for a while. It was cool. Yeah.
All right. Those are some good tips, though. If someone's going to take a trip to France, you'd say you could pass up Paris and go to other parts of France.
Yes. One more thing that you should do in Paris: the catacombs. There's
I
a
have
catacomb.
not done the
There's a catacomb walking tour. It's just skulls and bones for a long time. It's very, it's just, you're kind of just like, wow, there's a lot of dead people in here. And, obviously you don't have to worry about them becoming zombies because they're just skeletons at this point.
Right.
But just listening to the story of when they were like, yeah, we had all these like, all these graveyards, and we were putting roads over them, and the roads were collapsing because the bodies were decomposed. So like we have to figure out something to do with this stuff. So they just started building all of these, and they made this huge network of catacombs. And basically it's just femurs as retaining walls and skulls, and then they just threw all the rest of the bones in there, and it's just, you walk, and it probably takes like 40 minutes to walk through it, and you don't even get access to all of it, and it's just crazy looking.
Wow.
So
That does sound unique.
Totally worth doing.
Okay.
For sure.
Awesome.
Cool.
So yeah.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much for sharing about your trip.
Yeah,
We
you're
loved
totally
hearing
welcome.
about it. We have a couple questions for you. The first is based on the title of our show, Take Me With You.
Okay.
If you could take us with you to just one thing on this whole trip, what would it be and why?
In France?
Yeah, your trip to
Yes.
France.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take you, I don't think I would take you to a place. I would take you back to a moment, if that makes sense. This is a little cheat code, I think. So TJ and I, his aunt and uncle they would kind of retire pretty early. And so he and I would just like walk around the town, find somewhere to drink. Like, I mean, it was just low key and it was, a tired little town. Well, we found a bar, and, we just went in and grabbed a drink, and there were a bunch of Brits that came by and like joined, and they started pulling out all these cigars, and we were like, oh man, did you get those inside? And they were like, no, but we have 2 extras. So they were like, oh, so I was like, okay, well, like how much? Like, we'll buy them off you. And so, we just start talking, and these guys are all, 40s, probably like, and we start talking, and we're like, and they're like, oh, well, why are you guys here? Oh, we're traveling, yada, yada, yada. And we were like, well, why are you guys here? He's like, oh, well, we're here, kind of getting ready for the anniversary of Normandy. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, you guys part of like a ceremony or something? And this one guy who was basically me, but from the other group, boisterous, loud, extremely handsome, those types of things. He just goes, do you guys know who Bertram Ramsay is? And we were like, you mean the vice admiral of like the entire like British Navy during World War II? And I'm probably getting some details about that wrong. And he was like, yeah, that's that guy's grandfather. And he's here preparing to like represent his family in like the celebrations with like the queen and with, you know, the president. And he's like representing his family. And so like the 5 of us have been mates since like elementary school. And so we just decided, since he's got to come up for all of these like preparations, like we'll just make a trip out of it. And so we just goofed for like the next like hour and a half, just like talking back and forth and about their country, about America, and it was just fun. You know, it was just like, it was just this moment where you're like, what? Like, you're like, your grandfather is someone I learned about like in high school. Like, it was just crazy, you know? So that I would take you guys to that moment because it was just a cool moment.
Awesome.
That is very cool.
That's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
And what's your next trip?
Well, I'm going to visit my brother in Africa in like 3 weeks.
Cool.
That is let's not call that it's a trip, but I'm going to help him remodel his house. So it's not really like a trip. There's talk of a trip to either Switzerland or Ireland in the fall to celebrate my youngest nephew's first birthday. So rather than everyone going to Africa or them coming all the way back to America, the talk is maybe to do a trip to somewhere in Europe. So that will likely be the next trip somewhere. I'm really pulling for Switzerland.
I was going to say, do Switzerland.
I really want to do Switzerland. I won't be disappointed
Ireland
if we
is
go to
beautiful.
Ireland.
Yeah.
But I just really want to go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super expensive, but...
Well, you know. So yeah, that's probably the next trip.
I mean, I think it would make sense to be Switzerland because it would be a neutral meeting place.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, gosh.
World War II jokes. So cool.
I had to.
Oh, boy. And Kyle, do you have any travel questions for us?
Oh, man.
And don't you dare ask us our favorite country or place or something like that.
Okay, well, now that there are rules, I mean, I don't...
That's the only one,
What is-
and it's
what
because
is-
it's episode 65. So
What is one thing that if you forget it, it completely puts a damper on your travel?
Oh, boy.
That's a good question. I mean, for me, it's going to be a piece of technology.
Yeah.
It's going to either be my phone or my laptop, probably, because I rely on those so much to, you know, keep my travel plans, to be able to access things via email or whatever like that.
Yeah, phone would be rough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Phone would be very rough.
Especially if you get taken.
Especially then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I feel a little more shallow saying this one.
More shallow than phone?
And I don't... yeah, okay, I don't know if this is actually my final answer, but the first thing that came to mind was makeup.
Okay. I mean,
wow.
not
And
something
not that it
easy,
couldn't-
not something that's easily replaced, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I know what I like and what I buy and everything, and I take pictures when I travel, and I like to look nice. And so I think if I were like out and about and like natural face every day, I think it would put a damper on the trip.
I mean, I think
And
it's
I'd
a fair
like-
answer, yeah.
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 Yep. That was a good question. Very creative. I like it.
Yeah. All right, we are going to move into the last segment of the episode here today called Wish You Were Here. During this segment, each of the 3 of us is going to highlight a travel attraction from the different places that we have been. Think of it kind of like a postcard, just like a little snapshot of one thing that was really cool and said, hey, this was really cool, wish you were here. So Cheryl, why don't you get us started? What would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here?
I'm going to do a local one for the 3 of us here in Seattle in the Fremont neighborhood, and like to share about Schilling Cider. Have either of you been there?
I don't think so.
No.
Are you a cider fan, Kyle?
Yes, I think I am.
Okay.
I actually don't know
Okay.
that I've found a form of alcohol that I don't like other than tequila.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
cider, yeah, I'm in.
I was gonna say I'm the same as you, but I love tequila. I'd say vodka's the
get
only one I'm
out.
kind of whatever about. But
Okay, yeah.
yeah. Do you enjoy getting a flight? Like, do you like to try?
I
the
do,
different
yes.
things?
I do actually quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay, so I'd recommend Schilling Cider then. I love it. It's one of my favorite places to take someone when they're out of town, too, because we usually end up in Fremont at some point anyway. It's a fun little neighborhood, and this place is just a few blocks, like, from the troll statue, and the
Oh, yeah,
water
yeah.
and things like that. They have 30 plus ciders on tap, and from all these different places. So some of them are Schilling Cider, but some of them are like Tieton Cider, all these different other brands. But you can do a flight of 6 and you can choose any 6. And they have all these really fun flavors. They have a cider, which is really good. It's a chai flavored cider. They have spicy ones. They have, all these different fruits that they blend with it. And so it's so fun. It's fun to do with a group of people too. They have just like really long tables you can sit at and everything. So I'd recommend it. It's a fun place.
Yeah, that's cool.
Awesome. Kyle, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here?
Oh, man. Let me tell you, at some point in everyone's life, you have to experience African hospitality, like the guest lodges that exist in Africa. Like, they are just... even like the lower end ones are amazing. So the one that I'm calling out is the Royal Zambezi Lodge in Zambia. It's about a 3-hour drive from where my brother lives. I think it's about 3 hours, or a 30-minute plane ride in like a tiny single prop airplane. And it's right on the lower Zambezi River. They have like the main lodge where you like eat dinner, like is connected to a dock. And there are just boats that you can walk out on and go out and,
Wow.
like elephants walk through the camp and they walk through in front of the camp.
Jeez.
And it's just, it is an amazing, amazing experience. Like, it just feels, it's so wild and yet feels so luxurious,
Wow.
kind of at the same
That's
time.
cool.
And, you're in these like, simple but just like extravagant places to stay. It's just an amazing place. If you look it up online, and the pictures are amazing, and they don't do it justice.
Wow. How about you, Ryan?
So I'm going to do one from my trip to Ireland this past summer, except this is from Northern Ireland. So, Kyle, this would be a place that you haven't been, because I don't think you did Northern Ireland as part of your
I didn't
trip.
go.
Yeah, so this is called Dunluce Castle. And as I discovered on my trip to Ireland, it's actually a ruin, because I love ruins I don't know why, but I just am fascinated by them. So it is about halfway between Portrush and Bushmills, along kind of the northern coast of Ireland. And it's really, really beautiful. Obviously, again, it's a ruin of a castle, but you can walk through. It's on this cliff, and so of course there's amazing, views of the water and everything down below. And it's just it's fun to kind of be able to walk through the different rooms and kind of be able to picture and imagine what it would be like if it was all together. So it's cool because there's like different rooms and different kind of portions. And there's one part that's sort of on basically the mainland. And then there's this little bridge that goes across to this smaller little outcrop that has another part of the castle on it over there. And it's just, there's no roofs on it anywhere. You can see leftover oven chimneys where ovens were that you can see through the rocks. Some parts of it have fallen down, like parts of the walls have fallen down, and they're just kind of sitting there. Lots of open windows looking across. There's, grass and green, and you can see the water. And it's just, again, I love me a good ruined castle. So it's just really, really fun. It's a cool place. It's very beautiful and picturesque. So I would highly recommend visiting Dunluce Castle if you happen to be in Northern Ireland, which I would also recommend going to because it's cool.
It's totally one of those
Nice.
places that like someday will have like amazing augmented reality technology where you can like stand in that ruin and then like press a button and it will like rebuild the ruin around you so you can like see it. But
Oh my
these
gosh,
pictures
you're
are so
right.
cool.
Yeah, Kyle has the advantage of he can see some of my pictures as I'm looking through.
Well, we'll just have to put them on our Instagram
We'll have to
then.
put them on our Instagram. And it's like the ruin is cool, but then also just the scenery around the ruin is so gorgeous. And that's it's part of, I believe, the Antrim coast, which is that northern part of Northern Ireland. And it's just beautiful with the water and the cliffs and just the side. It's beautiful. But I could continue to fawn over Ireland for a very long time. So I will stop now.
Yeah, Ireland's awesome.
Nice.
Okay, so that is going to do it for this week's episode. So if you, Kyle, would be so willing, we'd love for you to share some pictures with us.
Yeah, sure.
From your trip.
Yeah.
And then we can post that on our Instagram so people can see a few of the cool places that you have talked about. And if listeners, you would like to find that, you can find us at TimWe Podcast. That's at TMWI for Take Me With You Podcast. We are on Instagram, and also we are on Facebook and on Twitter.
And I have to say that our Facebook page this week is getting some fun conversation going around our mini-sode that we just put out about house guests. Actually, my sisters are having some further conversation about advice they have for house guests and people who are hosting people in their homes. So hop on over there, join the conversation. I'm sure they would love it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com and send us what is the place that you think is most overhyped that you would only revisit under threat of divorce. We would love to hear it.
I've left my mark on the show. That's what matters.
You can also call us and leave us a voicemail at 406-763-8699, or if it is easier for you to remember, that's 406-POD-TIMWE, and we would love for you to share your answer to that question or any other tips. Maybe you have things to say about house guests as well. We would love any thoughts or feedback that you have about our podcast. We would also love it if you would rate and review us. I actually just went on iTunes recently and checked, and quite a few people have given us some reviews, so thank you for those of you who have and who have kind of rated us. And if you haven't yet, we would love it if you would be willing to do so. And then also you can subscribe to the podcast to make sure that you don't miss any future episodes about, cool places that our guests have been. And then if you can share about the podcast. I mean, Kyle wants to be more famous than he is right now, so you clearly need to go ahead and share the podcast so that Kyle can be more famous.
He really does. Yep.
That's true.
Yep.
I do.
Yep.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the use of her awesome artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can listen to Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
Kyle, one more time, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here.
It was great.
Yay.
Great time. Happy to come back anytime.
Awesome.
Yay.
We'll party on later.
That sounds great.
Sweet.
Good deal.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. So until next time, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you.
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and a little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here want time